My dearest mother, I know there is no way to bring you solace. You have seen the worst misfortune that could be imagined befall your son, and I know your heart must be broken. But you also watched as I clung to my dream of a life with Josette, and you saw how I tried to be true to her. Slowly, you became aware that Angelique was my tormentor, even as you gave her your sweet acceptance and welcomed her into the family. You never saw her rages, her poisoned heart. You believed that she mourned by my bedside in those last hours, but you never knew that she was a true sorceress, and never did you suspect the agony it was to wake in the clutches of her curse. At first I had thought that by some miracle I was still alive. The fever had passed, and I had survived. I awoke in darkness, in possession of my faculties, disoriented but conscious, and believed myself to be in a hospital bed in a shuttered room, restrained for my own safety. Surely the curtains were drawn because the sunlight earlier had caused me such suffering. But as I felt around the rough boards of my compartment, my elation turned to confusion, and then to dread. The walls seemed to resemble, no, unmistakable, a coffin. Fear clenched my heart. Had I been buried alive? Before I could struggle to free myself, a mist came over my mind that rendered me insensate, and a shaft of light sliced through the darkness along with a rush of cold air. I felt a creaking vibration as the doorway to the outer world was lifted. Involuntarily, I shut my eyes against the scorching light and lay still as death. A sweet, familiar smell settled over me, and warm whispers brushed my ears. But I feigned slumber, paralyzed by vague apprehensions. Something lodged itself near my heart, pressed a sharp point into my chest, and another body near my own shifted its weight. Unable to resist any longer, I jerked open my eyes, and I saw leaning over me as if to offer comfort a blurred vision. A striped green dress, yellow hair, and dark eyes flooded with tears. You will have guessed who it was. There was a rustling. A spear pierced my wainscot, and my gaze locked with hers. Her eyes flew wide in fear. A gasp escaped her lips, and before I could stop myself, I was lunging upward and had her by the throat. There is a measured realm of reason, but all is lost in the firebrand of rage. Only later came clarity, the helpless reassessment. She held a mallet and a stake. I had survived her demon spells, and she had come again to destroy me. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity, but I had no way of knowing that better she should have done her deed than for me to live in eternity as the creature I had become. I should never have stopped her, and what's more, I was a fool to kill her. She had brought the curse, and only she could reverse it. In one rash moment I had closed an iron barrier on my fate. What was her curse, you are wondering? Wait. I can still see the look in her eyes, her face contorted with panic like nothing I had seen in her expression before. She turned pale and trembled, as though she were looking at a monster, something inhuman. There was a mallet and a stake. What desperate attempt to defend herself was this? Had she the strength to send it home? A realization slowly dawned. I could feel something had changed. Always in the past she had been able to stop me with a flick of a finger, a wave of her hand. For Mother, you must believe me when I tell you, she was a demon, a witch whose spells had always infuriated me and left me weak. Did you know that I had tried to kill her when she threatened Sarah? And even when I shot her, shattered her breast, she had lived and found the strength to utter her damnation. She had reached deep within herself for some virulent power, and now I will tell you what she did. She called an infernal rodent to come, a rabid bat that flooded up to my neck, hung to the skin by its clawed wings, pierced my throat with its tiny teeth, and sucked my blood from my jugular. And she cursed me, Mother, with a magic as ancient as the harpies. All her venomous jealousy poured into that curse, which would condemn me to a hideous existence until the end of time. Even Ben had said when he heard, I didn't think anyone would ever be able to kill her. Yet I could feel the bones of her neck splinter in my hands as strength flowed into my arms, and I have often since reflected on the bitter irony that she had created a monster with a greater power than her own. The bones of her throat shattered, and her eyes bulged as I bent her back over my casket and kissed her mouth, drawing my first taste of blood, her blood, between my lips and discovering, to my surprise, my own raw need. For that is what she made me, Mother. And then, there she lay, broken on the stones, her eyes frozen open in the wide stare of death. Angelique. Gone. Incredible, when I had fought her for so long. She wore a green striped dress, and the stripes fell to twist like snakes around her awkward frame, but she was still and staring. Her yellow hair spattered about her head like fallen leaves, and I moved around the room, hugely strong, clenching and unclenching my fists, thinking, I know this place. The stones of the sarcophagus reeked of mold, and the 4 stone walls seemed impenetrable. The ceiling vaulted in a high arch from which hung tendrils of tiny stalactites, as though limestone tears had been seeping through the roof for centuries. And then I knew I was in the Collins mausoleum, our family's inner sanctum. In an instant I found the secret stone in the second stair, the one that slid to the side and slipped the latch. To my surprise, Ben was waiting. Poor oafish Ben, so eager to help, so dull in his mind, and I was relieved to see him. He spun to look at me, and his face went ashen. You remember Ben was the size of a giant, and had a giant's heart, good to the core. But, as you know, he was a defenseless servant, an uneducated vassal, powerless to disobey the orders of his master. Now he lifted his large palms in helpless denial.
Mr. Barnabas, is it really you?
She knew.
She told me you wasn't really dead, that you'd come back after the sunset. She made me get her a steak.
Well, she failed to put it to use, and now we must find a way to hide the body.
She's dead?
Yes, I strangled her.
I didn't think anyone would ever be able to kill her.
Ben backed away as though seeing me for the first time, his jaw slack with incredulity.
Something's happened to you, Mr. Barnabas. You changed. Different.
Yes, I said. I am different. It was as difficult for me to say it as it was for him to believe it. I am no longer human. Ben choked on a gurgling sound in his throat and slowly shook his head. I needed his help, but I could see that he might betray me out of stupidity as I strove to explain something I myself did not understand. I am. How did she put it? What of the living dead? I said. And Ben, you must keep my secret. If you tell a soul, I will kill you.
I won't tell nobody, Mr. Barnabas.
Good. Now we must find a way to dispose of Angelique's body.
I'll take it to the woods and bury it.
Footsteps were approaching, boots on gravel. I heard the screech of the opening to the mausoleum and the soft murmur of voices. It was you, with my father, whose square face with its grey sideburns appeared beyond the iron leaves and curlicues of the gate. His tight, straight mouth and his matching level eyebrows were stern, and his cold blue eyes uncompromising as he spoke to you.
We will find the person who did this, and he will be hanged.
You, my elegant mother, with your dark hair and patrician manner, murmured petulantly,
All that matters to you is retribution and revenge. Where is the pain and the sorrow at our loss?
I realized you were, of course, talking about me. And then you said,
You never loved our son.
I lunged for the ring in the lion's jaw and jerked it down. The door to the inner chamber slid open and I dashed inside. It closed behind me, and Ben was left to face Joshua Collins.
Stokes!
My father roared.
What is the meaning of this?
Ben sputtered his words.
I came to clean up after the funeral, sweep away the faded flowers.
Well, be off with you. I'm here to pay my respects to my son, and I have no need for your company.
Sweet mother, I knew you were gripped by bottomless grief, my father with rage. Revealing my secret would disgrace the family forever. You were drawing near my sanctuary, and I nearly stumbled over the body lying by the casket. Angelique was already cold and growing rigid when I lifted her in my arms and thrust her into my own coffin. I made no attempt to close her staring eyes, and every night after that, when I returned at dawn, I would remember that once she had lain there, her imprint still on the silk. My father advanced for the secret door, and Ben was at a loss to stop him, but as it slid open, a large squeaking bat flew out close to my father's head, startling him.
What on earth? What is that? How has a bat come to be in there?
Ben made another feeble effort.
Mr. Collins, you mustn't go in.
My father stopped at the door, scanning the room.
No,
He said with a long sigh, turning to you.
there's nothing to see. Only the lonely coffin where our son is laid to rest.
Oh, mother, if only I had not gone out, gone to Collinwood in hopes of one brief glimpse of Josette. If I had not moved into the woods beneath her window and tried to hide my face in the leaves. If only my darling little sister had not seen me from the doorway and cried out,
Barnabas, it is you! I know it's you! You've come back!
As I floundered through the trees, a horrid phantom with my cape flung out, catching on twigs and thorns, my leaps inhuman. Then she might not have followed me through the graveyard and into the mausoleum. A child delighted by her own mischievousness, only to crouch in terror by my casket, while I, drawn by a new and nameless hunger, had found myself hovering in a dark street off the docks, where the cobblestones were greasy with sea air, and the tolling from the lighthouse moaned its melancholy warning. A reoccurring beam whipped over the water and illuminated the rotting planks of the pier, and there I saw my first unfortunate, having found no takers for her charms that evening. Her back was turned to the door of the Blue Whale, and faint piano playing tempted her to sway slowly to the music. The intermittent light cast her in silhouette, displaying a jaunty hat, a flounced skirt, her vanity obvious even in the gloom. I found I was able to move like lightning, and I appeared so quickly beside her she caught her breath, but with one admiring glance she made me out to be a wealthy man, my fine trousers and silver-handled cane suggesting the life of privilege you and my father had given me.
What brings you out on such a rare evening, Captain?
She said, turning up a cheeky smile. I withdrew at the sight of a few broken teeth and a pock complexion that no painted beauty mark could enliven, and she placed a hand on my arm.
Half a crown, Captain, for a little company.
She said, her expression wan and imploring.
Not to worry, I have a room above the inn.
It was then that I realized for the second time how I had changed. Her brightly painted mouth, the faded curls of what must have been a wig, were oddly alluring. She was not young, but more than 50 years, and yet her tentative gestures of seduction charmed me, and her wistful indication of a life gone sad moved me to reach for her. She hesitated, still wanting to negotiate, and I breathed in the reek of musty perfume and unwashed ruff. Gently, I pushed aside the objecting hands she had placed against my chest, and I felt my canines thrust violently from my gums. Mother, I wish I could describe to you the unfamiliar sensation, as though my mouth had grown fur, while my tongue explored the points of my incisors in amazement. I bent her as she struggled, and I closed my ears to her frantic squeals. Then my torment at the hideous thing I knew myself to be dissolved in the intense daylight of forcing her open, entering her and merging, finding, as I ripped her neck, her jugular, and flooding my mouth and throat with her surprisingly sweet nectar. Oh, Mother, try not to despise me for what I revealed to you. Almost at once, I let her drop, repulsed by what I had done. I thought of dragging her to the water's edge where the outgoing tide might envelop her, but I merely left her there and withdrew into the shadows, staring back at her crumpled form. My second murder in as many days. She looked as Angelique had looked, motionless and small. I leaned against the wall of an empty warehouse facing the sea, felt the mossy brick, the slime of years under my palms, and weak, yet satiated, I slid to the ground and sat in a stupor, my limbs in a dull paralysis, my cape a pool around my thighs. I stared bleakly at the shapeless heap on the dock. The searchlight traveled over her, then left her in darkness. I was the goblet. She was the wine. I had kept myself alive, and now I knew clearly what that life was to be. Dawn crept over the sea beyond the pier, and the smudged gray light of an approaching storm revealed a faint horizon, casting into my mind a new fear. I knew I must return to the mausoleum. I seemed to fly there in an instant, only to find that Ben had been sleeping beside the stone steps through the night. He woke in a dull lethargy.
Mr. Barnabas, are you hurt? Has something happened?
To me, no, but to some unfortunate creature. It will be dawn soon, and here is the bizarre reality. I made an attempt to explain myself to Ben as I now do to you, how I had no choice but to return to my coffin. But Ben was stupefied and only stared at me in bewilderment.
But there's blood on your mouth, on your shirt.
You will hear talk of some attack in the village, I said, aware of the strain in my own voice. They will believe, from the marks on the poor woman's throat, that it was a wild animal. But I am the guilty one.
You mean?
I have been discovering, Ben, that I have remarkable powers, and I have learned something else about my new existence.
What's that?
I could not say it, even to Ben, and when the words formed, juices rose in my throat. I cannot survive without the blood of others. Ben's response was a mewling sound like that of a stranded cat, and I realized that my only friend in this new life was an uneducated and superstitious peasant. When I saw Angelique with the stake poised over my heart, I said, I should have let her finish what she meant to do. I would rather be dead than go through eternity as what I have become. I staggered through the iron gate, passed by the coffins, and drew down the ring in the lion's mouth. I was ready to crawl like a bloodied beast into his cave, but no sooner had I slunk inside than I heard my little sister's childish scolding.
Barnabas, I have been waiting for you for so long.
She was sitting in the filthy corner, against the wall, her knees pulled close to her chest, shivering in her thin nightdress, the pink one with ribbons, and her bright eyes were mischievous when she cocked her head. Mother, she was such a sweet and lively child. How frightened she must have been there among the graves, and how much she must have loved me to come searching for me. She looked up with expectant joy, and, by her eager expression, I could tell she was certain I would gather her up and take her home safely. What had the witch said? All who love you will die. I swung my face away, terrified that she had discovered me, knowing that my mouth and cravat were still stained with the blood of my victim.
Barnabas, I knew it was you.
But then she saw me, and her voice broke into a wail. I watched helplessly as her delight faded, her eyes grew wide, and she threw her small hands up to hide me from her sight. I came forward to reassure her, but she screamed as only a child can scream, a high, unearthly howl that rent my heart and echoed through the mausoleum. Then she scrambled to her feet, and, bundling up her nightskirt, fled to the graveyard in the swirling mist. Ben found her crouched behind the stone of Jeremiah, such a fitting hiding place, for, as you remember, I had only lately killed him in a duel, hoping to reclaim my Josette. But when Ben called and called her name, Sarah sat trembling and weeping in the shadow of Jeremiah's grave, terrified and struck dumb with fear as the hard rain began to fall. When he finally carried her home, it was too late. She had been in the storm, her clothes were clinging to her skin, and the shock had struck her mute. She had neither the will nor the strength to fight the pneumonia that settled in her lungs. With Ben's help, I contrived to see her while you were away, to show her my face, unbloodied and contrite. I entered her nursery quietly, where her toys were scattered on the floor, a dollhouse with tiny furniture arranged in its rooms, a rocking horse with a tangled mane, and a porcelain lady tossed face down on the carpet. Sarah, your beloved daughter, lay on a silken coverlet, and as I drew her near, I could not help but catch my breath at the perfection of a child. Her skin flawless as apple blossoms, the dark lashes that fell on her flushed cheeks, and her bee-stung mouth. I took her hand and pressed each small finger with my own, reflecting on the miracle of life. Each of her fingernails was like a tiny, transparent shell. But she woke delirious, and her wide eyes darted around until they settled on my face.
Barnabas.
I lifted her from her pillow, feeling her small bones, and pulled her close to my heart, my cheek against her forehead. She put out a rush of heat. Sarah, I never meant to frighten you. I love you so.
I love you, Barnabas.
She whispered.
And I always will.
Her head fell forward onto my breast, and she sighed her last in my arms. It was like a blow. My breath stopped. My body caved into itself, and my whole being was convulsed and sobbing. But sadly, no tears came. It was then I knew I had brought you doubly the grief that no mother should ever endure. All that you loved I had taken from you. I returned to the mausoleum in a dull-witted stupor, like a dog that had eaten rotten flesh, ashamed and sick in my soul. It was I who killed her, I kept repeating. If only she had never seen me as I was. If only I had not frightened her so.
No, Mr. Barnabas, it wasn't you. It was the storm that killed her, and the fever.
How like Ben to be so kind, even to me, even when he saw what I was. As for me, I could only babble incoherently. Everyone who has ever dared to fall in love in this family has been miserable. Little Sarah, in her ruffled cap and sleeping gown. What have I become? How can I do the things I do? A child among the tombstones, trapped behind the gate. She followed me and discovered the most terrifying secret. Ben stood listening, his jowls sagging, body thick and slouched, his hands dangling by his sides, unable to respond, helpless to calm me or to console me. Then he shut his eyes, and tears ran from under his stubby lashes. He shook his head. I became afraid. Don't turn away from me, Ben. I am not responsible for what happened. And yet I knew I was. The fault was mine. Ben, I must escape the light. The light? Do you hear me, Mother? How well Angelique knew me, to put a curse on me that I must live eternally by night. Live! What a mockery I made of that word, for I was dead, and nothing lived except the hatred inside me. Ben looked over at me, his expression a grimace of pity and incomprehension. I knew then that only he could save me from myself. I have made a decision, Ben. You must do what Angelique began. The stake and mallet are still lying on the floor in the room with my coffin. If I go to the village and give myself up for the murder of that poor woman, or if I expose myself to the sun and am destroyed, it will disgrace my family forever. No, I will be in the coffin, and that's where I will remain, with your help. But Ben shook his head.
Mr. Barnabas, don't ask me to do what I can't.
But who else can I ask? If you do this for me, at sunrise I will be at peace. The stake you made is of enough length to pierce a man's heart. Release me, Ben. Free me from an eternity of shame.
Mr. Barnabas, I can't. I haven't the will or the strength. You've always been good to me. I can't never do that to you.
End my torment. Would you condemn me to wander forever? You will be bestowing the greatest act of friendship, the gift of peace.
Can't you just go on the way you are?
I struggled to convince him. More than anything, I longed to stop the deaths. Don't you understand? I cried. These urges rise up in me, and to fight them is futile. Urges despicable and gruesome. Animal urges like those of a mad dog or a trapped and tortured hyena, with instincts most wretched and ruthless. and those I feed on could become like me, ravenous, diseased. We will all kill to live and live to kill, because the force that drives my wretched existence cannot be denied. Even cancer cells will destroy their host to replicate and thrive, just as the severed head of a poisonous snake will clamp onto the hunter's hand and discharge its poison. Not for nothing have vampires inspired terror and repulsion, been despised and found hideous by all mankind. Look at me, a monster, a predator preying on the helpless, victims of their own innocence. So, Ben, grant me this one last gesture of devotion. Say you will do it. Ben sighed and placed his huge hands over his eyes.
I will, Mr. Barnabas. I'll do what you want.
Mother, I felt a great sense of reprieve. My body was lighter, and I sighed deeply. And when I am gone, remember what was good about me. Remember me as I was. Ben, poor helpless peasant, torn between loyalty and obedience, was weeping again. And as soon as I had his promise, I knew I would extract another. And now I will admit to you, this request was one of the utmost selfishness, and it was my doom. Just one last thing, Ben. He lifted his rheumy eyes to mine. Before I go, I must see her again.
Not Miss Josette.
Yes. I can say goodbye to everything in this world except her.
But she thinks you're dead.
I will go quietly in the night while she sleeps. She will never know I was there.
But what if she wakes up?
She will not wake. I will want to wake her, want it desperately, to hold her, to take her with me. I could not finish my thought, but I love her too much for that. I will return before dawn, and you must be here to do what you have promised. I reached for Ben and embraced him. Goodbye, true friend, I said. Do not fail me. I came to Josette's room in the form of a bat, hovering at her window, and I saw her sleeping in the moonlight, the crocheted canopy of her four-poster bed casting spiderweb shadows on her coverlet and across her face and form. It was as if she slept in a cloud, all downy quilts and soft stuffs. She wore a blue satin gown that clung to her shoulders, and her dark curls were spread across her pillow. Her lips were parted, and the fragrance of her breath came to me, the odor of mint. As I settled on her carpet and leaned over her, I was struck breathless by her satiny cheek, like the petals of a flower, her heart-shaped face, and dark lashes that twitched as though she saw something in her dream. But what pained me more than her beauty, or even her purity, was my helplessness in the presence of her loyal and unselfish soul. Moving noiselessly across her carpet, I slipped the ebony ring from my finger, and intending to leave it on her dressing table among her jewels and perfumes, I looked up to her mirror, expecting to see my own trespassing form. But nothing of me was there. The window revealed only the shadowed room, her sleeping body, and the moon shining through her window. Returning to her bedside, I tried to sear my brain with what would be the image I took to my death, of her breathing body wrapped in gauzy silk, her bare breast rising and falling beneath the gathers of chiffon, the blue of the moonlight on the pillow hollowed beneath her cheek, and her tangled hair. Unable to stop myself, I gently lifted one of her curls and wrapped it around my finger. I touched the lace of her gown, the delicate trim of her collar. I pulled it aside, and she moaned and turned her face away as though offering herself to me. Her pulse throbbed softly. Goodbye, my dear Josette. Her mouth fell slightly open and her small teeth glistened. I remembered all the abandoned kisses she had given me, her charming flirtations, her downcast eyes. Her breast rose and fell as she slept, and I marveled at her living body, warm and vital, and I ached as I imagined it pressed against me. Just one kiss, and I leaned in to touch her lips with my own. Feelings of such desperate hunger surged through me that I nearly lost consciousness from the rush of desire. How can I say goodbye? But I must! I must! Lifting her white hand as gently as I could, I slipped my ring on her finger, and a silent marriage vow escaped my lips. I take thee, Josette. Her lashes fluttered, and so afraid that she would wake, I withdrew, flew to the window in a panic and out into the night. Rising up from her pillow, she cried out,
Barnabas, is it you?
And clutching the quilt to her chest, she looked around in sleepy wonder.
I thought I heard your voice.
She rose quickly and pulled her robe about her, then went to the window. As she looked out at the moonlit grounds of Collinwood, I wondered whether she saw my fluttering form darting into the trees. But she only unlatched the casement and leaned into the night, her fingertips resting on the sill, her dark eyes flooded with tears.
Barnabas, I know it was you. I heard your voice. You promised to return to me, and I knew you would. Come back to me, my darling.
She scanned the lawn and the trees beyond.
Or do you wish me to come to you?
I settled into my coffin, bitter and resigned, but somehow at peace. I thought only of Josette, and was profoundly comforted by the thought that I had not harmed her. She was free of me at last, and she was young. Her life stretched out before her with the promise of happiness. A great weight seemed to be lifted off me, and I felt as though I were floating on air. As I closed my eyes to the world, I saw her face hovering over me, and heard her soft voice calling my name.
Barnabas. Barnabas.
Oh, Mother, what are the images I cannot erase? Her gasp when she discovered my ring on her finger, Ben digging her grave, a violent argument with Natalie who locked her in her room, the sound of glass breaking, her discovery of the secret passage, her foot slipping at the edge of Widow's Hill, and her scream as she fell into the night. I never knew that when Ben raised the mallet to drive the stake home, it was Josette who stayed his hand. I woke as a suicide must wake, after he had chosen his own irrevocable death. Both relief and rage surged in my breast. How could I not be giddy to feel life still boiling in my blood? But my fury with Ben seemed to overwhelm any sense of reprieve, and I determined to find him and make him my next victim. A fitting punishment for his betrayal. I lurched from my coffin, and immediately such spasms of hunger shuddered through me that I thought I would not be able to stand. I staggered into the mausoleum, and when I slid open the door, the sputtering flames of candles that had burned to dripping stubs wavered slightly in the air. The room was drenched in floating shadows, and Josette was there, standing by Sarah's coffin. She was dressed in black for mourning, and a long piece of lace, like a Spanish mantilla, covered her hair. Her gown was perfection, as were all her dresses, tucked and trimmed to complement her supple waist and shoulders, and she had gathered up some of the white roses from Sarah's casket and held them in her hands as though she had been savoring their fragrance. Her fingers beneath the dark veil was as pale as the flowers, and her eyes were bright with tears.
Barnabas, my love.
The roses fell from her hands and she moved toward me.
No!
I cried out, backing away.
You must not come near me!
But why? I woke from a sound sleep and I thought I heard your voice. Something drew me here, where I last saw you when you...
She stopped herself before speaking the obvious.
But you're alive! You have come back to me!
I didn't come back to you. I didn't summon you.
But you did. You were in my chamber. You left me this.
She lifted her hand to show me the ring, and reached out to touch my face. Her fingertips burned my skin.
Please, Josette, you must stay away from me. You must leave this place. Leave Collinwood. For your own sake, you must go far, far away.
But why, when our love has brought us together again?
I beg you, if you love me, forget you saw me. Remember all this as a terrible dream.
But it wasn't a dream.
She brimmed with life and youthful eagerness, her face a glowing mixture of happiness and disbelief. Desperately, I looked for explanations that would convince her. Finally, I said helplessly, "There are forces at work beyond our control." She smiled, a smile of secret sharing.
Yes, and I know what those forces are.
You do? She moved closer and looked up into my face, her mouth lifted to mine.
It is my love for you, and yours for me.
Again I pushed her away and forced myself to stand with Sarah's casket between us.
You must not come near me. Go away and forget me. What you don't see is that this is the beginning of a new life for me, one you could never understand.
She frowned and lifted her hand to her throat. Her face darkened, and I knew that I had hurt her.
No!
She said.
I can't forget you!
There was petulance and exasperation in her tone.
Josette, please go before it is too late.
No, and there is nothing you can say or do, Barnabas. Now that this miracle has happened, I will never leave you again.
I wanted with all my being to believe her.
Can't you see that I am different?
Her eyes narrowed and she looked at me.
Something has happened to you. A change.
The black lace fell across her eyes, and she seemed almost ghoulish with the splotches of shadows on her cheeks. I had a premonition of her death shroud, and my throat clenched as I spoke.
Don't you remember when I was dying in my room? Don't you remember when I lay in my casket?
Yes, I remember. But you promised me that you would come back, and I never believed that you had died. Now you are here, and that is all that matters to me.
The idea that began to bloom in my unconscious mind, I swear to you, Mother, I pushed aside. But it came again, and as she persisted, all eagerness and conviction, I gave it shameful consideration. Then again, I rejected it. No, it would be wrong to cheat her of her life in order to take her into mine. I knew that could be my only choice, if I loved her. But I must set her free. Believe me, Mother, I meant with all my being to convince her to leave.
Josette, listen to me. Most men would barter their souls and all their possessions to do what I have done. To come back, as you say, from the grave. To live again. But it was not by choice. It came in the form of a curse. And it is that curse that makes it impossible for us to ever be together.
The flames sputtered and long shadows painted the walls of the mausoleum like hovering ghosts. Josette was a spectre, moving in her black dress. She seemed to understand and even to sense my reasoning, for she looked up at me, her face white beneath the black lace, and her voice calm and certain.
Our love can overcome a curse. What is some silly superstition compared to our love? Because you came back for another reason. You had to come back, Barnabas, because you could not stay away. Our destinies are one, and I will die before I leave you. Don't you see that is beyond our powers to resist?
I could feel myself faltering, giving way to her conviction, which seemed almost bewitched. She did not seem naive, but deeply aware of all that she said and what it could mean in her life. I imagined us in some foreign land, living secretly, but together. I had only to make her mine. As though she were reading my thoughts, she said,
Wherever you go, take me with you. Nothing can keep us apart. I only want to be with you. I don't care about a curse, or these things I don't understand. The new way of life you spoke of, that will be ours. You are my life, and I am yours.
She came to me, and I could not push her away. She melted in my arms, her trembling body against mine, her fragrance filling my breath. She was like a child clinging to its mother, and I had not the heart or the will to pull her from me. She shuddered, her whole body vibrating with desire, and I tried to take her gently, without her feeling the bite, sweetly, so that she would not be afraid.
Hold me,
she whispered,
and nothing will ever harm me.
I tasted her and gathered her to me, as a tree embraces the earth with its roots, and she let out a long, sobbing sigh.
Now I have nothing to fear. At long last I am safe.
I can still see the dusty shed where Ben was working. There were rough boards, saws, and other tools, wooden barrels, ropes, and fishing nets. 2 wooden caskets sat side by side in the sawdust, and the smell of newly cut lumber filled the air. Ben was gloomy and stubborn, sawing with ugly jerks and kicking aside the scraps. He set each nail with more strength than necessary, shaking the shed with his blows.
Why do you need 2?
I am leaving Collinwood tonight, and I am not leaving alone. But as for Josette, I will have her with me. Ben, carpenter, caretaker, servant in life, unwilling slave in death, stared at me with contempt, as he had already guessed my plans. Even now, the memory of that recriminating look pains me. Ben was instinctively good. Always he resisted evil, and always he tried to protect those he loved. Oh, my sweet mother, if only I had his blameless nature.
She doesn't know what's in store for her. What you are. If you love her, you won't do this.
The truth of what he was saying stung my conscience. She came to me. Her pleading tore my heart, and she won me over with her protestations. Can't you understand? It's what she wants. After she is dead, she'll come back. We'll go to the sea, away together, to another land, to England, and live a new life. The coffins must be ready.
Mr. Barnabas, I won't build a coffin for her. You can't make me do it.
I was growing exasperated. Don't you see, Ben? She will make it bearable, happy even. Ben drew down the saw and pulled his gloves from his hands. He leaned over to reach for his coat.
No, Mr. Barnabas, I won't help you. Miss Josette is good. She doesn't deserve this. You mustn't do it.
I have already done it. I couldn't resist. I have made her what I am. He turned to face me, his face aghast.
You promised you wouldn't go near her. I thought you loved her.
Mother, it may have been my lowest point, to turn on my only friend, but I was desperate to see my plan through. I had lost all reason. Infuriated beyond restraint, I grabbed Ben with both hands around the throat. Ben, I can kill you. Do you want to die? He struggled beneath my grip, his feet barely touching the floor. Gasping for breath, he shook his head. Then make ready the coach. Finish the caskets and take them to the ship. I found I could watch my beloved in my mind's eye, and it calmed me to read her thoughts. Mother, listen to me, and I will tell you what I saw. Josette is neither frightened nor despondent, but she has sunk into a dream. The moon rises at her window and casts its day-bright beams across the floor. She lies on her quilt staring into space, enraptured, caught in a blissful daze. She touches the small wounds at her neck and sighs as a wave of pleasure washes through her. Languid with happiness, she stretches and sighs, then rises and goes to the window. The moonlight is a magnetic force, tugging at her thoughts, and she speaks as if in a trance.
My darling, I feel the protection of a power greater than love itself. I went to the mausoleum. Such tragic memories. Who could have forced me to go there?
But then my vision was altered by her confusion. She has somehow lost her ring.
The ring? He will expect me to have it.
Searching frantically, she knocks over a lamp. The sound of glass shattering is followed by faraway laughter, mirthless and hollow. She turns to the comfort of the moonlight, but the fickle orb has ducked behind clouds. A storm approaches. Thunder, trailing skeins sail over the moon and blot out its light. Breathing. A door slams. Natalie is locked out. Wings beating. A music box plays a scratchy, tinkling melody. Josette lifts the delicate cylinder and gazes at the spinning dancer behind the glass. She is the dancer, a sleepwalker unaware, trapped in a nightmare. And then, the inconceivable. A whisper. A voice disguised as mine, sounding odd and metallic, calls her. Are you ready to leave, Josette?
Yes, my darling.
She looks around in a stupor.
Where are you? Why can't I see you?
I found the ring.
I feel so guilty.
I will wait for you on Widow's Hill, sweet and gentle Josette. Go through the secret panel. Come to me. She finds the latch, and the walls open slowly. As Josette disappears down the dark corridor, Angelique laughs, an evil cackle. Then she appears. Her face is in the room like the moon released from the dark sky, white and ghostly, contorted with tears. The four-poster twists as though alive. The canopy lies tangled. The clock stops. At last I return to the shed, shaking the vision from my mind. Angelique was dead. I had nothing to fear from her. 2 coffins were finished and sat close together in the coach. The horses pranced and gnawed at their bits, restless and jittery from the thunder. Their hooves rang out on the cobblestones, and the coach rocked. Far away, lightning blinked and the wind whined. Where could she be? Why did she not come?
Barnabas, can you hear me?
It was a voice, one I recognized, but not her voice.
Come to me.
Who was calling to me? Was it the aberrant wind, spiraling down the alley to the sea? It spoke again in her tones, but not her inflection.
I am waiting at Widow's Hill.
Why? Why have you gone there? This was not her voice. The truth struck me. No! Josette! Don't let her trick you!
I didn't think anyone would be able to kill her.
Josette, her nightdress covered by a long velvet cape the color of midnight with a hood lined in rose-colored satin, wanders helplessly toward the cliff. Thunder growls at the moon-streaked sky and the wind tears through the trees, their skeleton arms clawing at the sky. Mist from the sea rises, swirls around her feet, and she stops to listen to the far-off sound of the waves crashing on the rocks. She looks down, shudders. So many have died here. Again she hears the sad, desperate laughter.
Who is that? Don't worry, Josette. Your precious Barnabas will be here soon. Angelique! Why are you here? I have always been your loyal servant, mademoiselle. I came to warn you, to show you what lies ahead. You must not go with him, Josette. He is evil. Don't you know he plans to kill you?
She searched the trees for a face to go with the voice.
No! He loves me! If he loved you, he would have told you he plans to change you into what he has become. First he is planning to murder you, a death both shameful and brutal. And then, after you have bled to death, he will bring you back to life. But you will no longer be the lovely girl you are now. You will be a grotesque, bloodthirsty animal. Look, over the cliff. Look into the future. See how you will change. See yourself as you will be when you have become his bride.
Josette, hypnotized by the voice, obeyed and walked to the edge of the cliff. At first she saw only the sea stretching out to the faint horizon, and white froth tumbling on the jagged edges of the rocks. Then, as she stared into the abyss, she could see the vision Angelique had conjured for her, an image that floated in the mist and taunted her, even in her stupor, and aroused her vanity. Mother, I ask you now, as a woman, surely you will understand. How could she not have been brought to her senses by this fiendish apparition? How could a maiden who possessed such beauty not be vain? She loved me, it was true, but she also loved her chestnut hair, her alabaster skin, and her luminous gaze. The mirror always gave back to her a breathing portrait of flawlessness. Often, when imagining that she was kissing me, she would kiss her own reflection, and draw back and marvel at how her love would shine in her own last shadowed eyes. And now, when she looked into the abyss, what did she see floating there? An emaciated harlot clothed in rags. The grasping wind clawed at the hem of a tattered dress, and tendrils of torn muslin swirled around her. Her shining hair was a matted tangle, her flawless complexion dull, and her high-boned cheeks were bruised hollows in her skull. Her soft eyes were sunken and bloodshot, rimmed with crimson. Blood dripped from her lips, and most hideous of all, sharp eye teeth like daggers gleamed in a cavernous mouth.
No! Take it away!
She covered her eyes and shuddered. She had never dreamed that she would be ugly. What had she to give but her beauty? Her rapturous passion sprang from her gift of ivory thighs, subtle hips, and a full and eager mouth. It was the complete expression of her love. I had forgotten how young she was, barely out of her teens, achingly submissive and eager to bestow upon her lover all her perfection, like a vessel of rare wine. By the time I reached her, she was already a few feet from the edge of the cliff, trembling in the wind and staring out at the night sky where the moon had come forth once more and stars careened in swirls of cloud. I knew what she saw was a vision summoned for her by Angelique. Something not real, but so terrifying it had robbed her of her courage. Josette! Startled, she turned to me, her dark eyes not seeing me, her mouth agape. Her voice was raw, quavering with fear.
Don't come near me! I know what you are, and I don't want to be that! What you have become! I'll die before I let that happen!
Frantic, I struggled to speak, but she only shook her head, her eyes like pools.
Stay away!
Let me pull you back, my darling. Don't be afraid. This nightmare is not ours. Another dream awaits us. I lunged for her and caught her just before she fell, and with a gasp of relief I crushed her to me. But she sobbed,
No! No, let me go!
and as I tried to contain her writhing body and clawing hands, in my desperation I could think of but one method of restraint. And for a moment I did have her. My fangs found her heart's artery, and her blood flowed into mine. But even as she froze for a moment, she would not give over. A new surge of revulsion seemed to overtake her, and again she beat at me, tore herself free and stumbled backward toward the cliff, where she teetered for an instant, her face contorted in absolute hatred. I hesitated to draw near as she took another step back, slowly shaking her head at my desperate pleading. Then one slippered foot rolled on a loose rock, but I was not quick enough, and taking one last breath, she turned and jumped. Josette! I ran to the edge and looked down, my heart a pounding drum. There lay her broken body on the rocks, the foam swirling around her blue cape, catching her hair and pulling it into the surge. She was still alive when I reached her, but she did not know me. The breakers crashed, the wind roared under the moon-streaked sky, and beneath the tumult I thought I could hear Angelique's evil laugh sputtering out of the gale.
Anyone who loves you will die.
As the sea churned around us, I knelt and caught Josette up, gathering her body in my arms, heaving sobs and crying over and over, "No, I will not let you go. I will keep you here. I will find a way. I cannot live without you." All the time knowing she had left me forever, that, hating me, she had chosen to die. She was gone from me, and I faced eternity without her. I held her as the life flowed out of her, and as I kissed her skin wet with the salty surf, and stopped my breath in the tangled seaweed of her hair, I saw one white hand drop away from my embrace and fall into the foam. Black roses in her hair, odor of roses thick with bruised stems and decay. Crimson roses turned to ebony. At least she had died. She was released from the hell of all her fears. Death is often less terrible than life. I watched Ben dig her grave, and I was tormented when, in her wedding dress, they laid her in the earth. Desperately I reassured myself, if I had one power, it was the vampire's curse. I had taken her blood. Once the others had gone, you and my father, I went to her grave, lay beside the new mound, and dug my hands into the dirt. The lilies lying there sickened me with their sweet odor as I traced the letters on her stone with my finger, and I called to her. The trees near the mausoleum creaked in the wind, and I looked up at their flailing branches against the pale sky, like the arms of supplicants in prayer. Josette, I know you can hear me. Come to me. Her voice was a whisper of the wind.
No, I am dead. Let me rest.
I beg you, I implore you, and as your maker, I command you, return from the land of the departed. How long did I call to her? Was it weeks? Months? Was it years? I know I never ceased to lie by her grave at night and beg her to join me. By then you knew what I had become, but you did not know my obsession. Josette, you are mine. Come and we will fly away together. Eternity will be ours. Always she refused. Then, one dark night, as I sobbed anew, more wretched than ever, the grave moved, the soil lifted. Elated, I waited for her in her dark chamber where no reflection of mine quavered in her mirror. The clock was ticking when a white skirt, white slippers, faded embroidery coated in mud floated up the stair. There was a soft fluttering at her door, cold air, the wind whistling, and then silence. A shrouded form, her face draped in white cotton. I held my breath. The clock stopped. She was there, fragile and emaciated, like a skeleton hung with her wedding dress, her shape too small, the fabric gathered in wrinkles around her shoulders.
Why did you disturb my rest?
But my breast heaved with joy. You have come back. I could barely speak. Oh, my darling, you still hate me. She was silent, a white spectre almost transparent, and so thin and small. I longed to embrace her. Can you forgive me? At first she did not answer, but finally she said in a weak voice,
There is nothing to forgive. I can feel nothing now. I have gone to my fate. You have gone to yours. You should not have forced me to visit you. If you lift my veil, you will see why.
No, I don't want to lift your veil. I know what you are because I made you. Your beauty will break my heart. You will be frail for a while, but I will protect you, and once you are a vampire, you will be lovelier than ever. Come to me and let me hold you. Lie against me. And in the shadows from the moon, I drew her to me and kissed her face again and again through the sheer muslin, my mouth searching for the shape of her cheeks, her nose, her lips. And then, when I lifted the veil at last to kiss her mouth, the stench of death rose from her, the odor of roses rotting in a vase. I brought the candle up to her face, and it was as if she had been scorched by fire. Flesh hung in black strips, like layers of a rotting onion, and one blood-veined eye was loosed from the socket and dangled on her cheek. Green maggots squirmed from the gaping hole. Her nose had collapsed into her skull, and her mouth was a toothless cavern. I could feel her bones give way beneath her shroud, and what had once been her skeleton disintegrated into powdery crumbs in my hands. And so, Mother, I have looked upon the face of death. She came to me, dragged from the grave by the power of our love, but it was not enough. It is finished, and I shall never see her again. My dearest Mother, why do we never learn to leave the past alone? Why do we try to reach back? I killed her with my own hands. Look where I am now. This house is deserted. None of my family, not even you, will ever visit. This has been a house of agony. But I must be here, where she and I were, with her portrait, always young, always beautiful. I must endure a sentence of solitary confinement, thousands of nights alone. See how Ben digs Josette's grave. I can grasp him by the throat and fling him into the earth. He comes to care for me, my only companion, and with him I share my bitterness. Is there a wind tonight? Does it blow off the sea, through the trees?
Why do you ask?
Are there stars? Is there a mist in the sea? Is there a moon? This is the time when the nails of corpses grow. As I emerge, I want the night to be dark. The stars must not see what is happening tonight, for I have deeds to do. Why should anyone live when she is dead? They all feared the plague. I will visit them with a pestilence that will leave them nothing but lust for sweet release. My rage will burst these walls. My passion will crumble these stones. Destruction is all I want. Destruction everywhere. Death and blood. I want to see her. Look on her one last time.
But you know she's dead.
Anyone who loves you will die.
The rocks at the bottom of the cliff. The last thing I saw was her frail white hand. That water. Those rocks. My father has opened my coffin. Empty. So he knows. His premonitions are torture to him now, and someday soon he will come with chains. Or I will go to Collinwood, and I will walk through the door. I will tell you how much I love you, Mother, and I will tell my father what has happened. He can do whatever he wants. I would rather be lying in the coffin with a stake through my heart than be the way I am now. Angelique, are you determined to keep me in this hell? You will not let me die, but you will kill no one else, and your curse is broken because I will never seek love again. Josette is dead, and my heart has gone from me. She could have been with me always. And so, Mother, that is my fate. Immortality. The soul's desire is mine, but not in the way I had dreamed. I am evil's emissary, the devil's messenger, and though I still crave goodness, it is no longer within my grasp. You have heard the sordid tale, and all that is left is for you to forgive me. If this is what eternity is to be, then let it begin. Your devoted son, Barnabas.